There's a way to make an entrance.
This is my destiny.
It was now a conspiracy of witches.
Download Veely today.
Cornfield Hall is an architectural gem dating back to the 15th century. But it's not just the property that's important. The extraordinary collection inside makes this one of the nation's truly hidden treasures. James Cartland has spent the last 21 years restoring the house. Now in his 60s, he's struggling to keep it going.
It's got too much for me. There are too many things to do here, and I've been doing them all.
Can businesswoman Ruth Watson help secure Cornfield Hall and its amazing contents for the future?
I think you might say that I'm slack-jawed with amazement.
And persuade James that semi-retirement is the best way forward.
How are you spending your days then?
You must be joking.
No, it's
Stupid
interesting.
question.
It's not stupid because...
It is a stupid question,
No,
but
it isn't.
just forget it.
Cornfield Hall in Derbyshire is a Grade II listed manor dating back to the late 1400s. Fervent antiques collector James Cartland bought the abandoned property in 1987 and has devoted his life to bringing it back to its former glory.
When I first came here, the house was in a state of complete dereliction. No plumbing, no electricity, holes through the roof.
James is a second cousin to romantic novelist Barbara Cartland. He's had a love of antiques since he was a child.
My collecting bug started when I was about 5 years old. I reckon I must have been hit on the head, and it's been a disease ever since, completely incurable.
Today, Cornfield Hall is home to an astonishing array of treasures, trinkets and curios that have been lovingly collected over the years.
It all fits together. It's a wonderful time capsule, and people who come here, they think it's always been here.
James opens the house on an informal basis for tours, but the income hardly makes a dent in the hall's £20,000 annual maintenance costs.
Only a few people come, and probably brought in about £1,500. Not exactly going to keep the roof on.
Twice divorced, James now lives a reclusive life at Cornfield Hall, surrounded by his beloved possessions. Isolated from the modern world and in his 60s, he's finding it increasingly difficult to keep up with the demands of the house. With no children of his own, James has decided to leave the estate to his godson, Robin Hanover. But he wants to ensure that his heir gets a welcome inheritance rather than a tiresome burden.
You never end up with a house like this if you're sensible.
Businesswoman Ruth Watson has helped historic houses up and down the country turn their fortunes around with her practical advice and direct manner. Today, Ruth's in Derbyshire to meet James and help him safeguard Cornfield Hall for the next generation.
I think Ruth will either run a mile, or I will, I'm not sure which.
Hello.
Oh, how nice for you to come.
You must be James.
I am, yes.
And I'm Ruth. And
Yes.
what a very interesting house. Because your name's Cartland, and
It
I've
is.
got to ask the question, are you related to the Grande Dame?
Absolutely, yes.
What relationship?
Oh, well, my great-uncle was her grandfather.
Well, I'm glad you don't share the same taste in mascara.
I decided today not to wear the pink frock. Follow me.
Over the next few days, Ruth will formulate a plan to preserve Cornfield for the future. She begins her tour in the Great Hall.
I think you might say that I'm slack-jawed with amazement. This is incredible. And there is everything from taxidermy to pewter to bar screens. But, I mean, how long... I mean, did you acquire this? OK, tell me about this. Did you move in and half of it was here, or...
No.
Have you, I mean...
Absolutely
Have you brought
not.
it all in?
No, it's all been brought in. There was nothing here when I came here at all, not one single solitary thing.
So you're responsible for all of it?
I'm afraid I'm totally responsible, or irresponsible, perhaps.
I think a large collection of feather dusters is required, that's for sure.
Keep them on top of it, really.
Do you?
I have a blitz.
So?
I have a blitz on it about twice a year.
Right. And what about this extraordinary doll's house behind you?
Yes.
I think I need to see what's inside.
Yes. Do you want to have a look?
This is sort of like a little microcosm of what the house appears to be, and that you don't seem to be content with real-life house. You need to have another small-scale
Because
one
I've
as
run
well.
out of room.
Well, I think I'd better continue with the tour, don't you?
Upstairs in the real house, every surface, shelf, sideboard and wall space is covered.
Well, I knew we weren't going to be coming into a minimalist room. I don't think I have ever been anywhere quite like this, apart from a museum. And, of course, in a museum, it's all behind glass and you can't actually touch it.
Here, it's all sort of just used.
I apologise, I'm not actually looking at
No,
you.
I'd much rather you looked at the furniture.
I realise that I've never been in a room where one's eye is so taken by everything. You just kind of, you know, you alight on one thing and then you're on to the next thing and the next thing, and it's never ending. Well, I think I'd like to see some more of Miss Havisham's house, if I may.
There is no doubt that James has amassed an impressive collection, but it's the aged house that requires his constant attention and money.
Is everything panelled? Is the whole house panelled?
No, but a lot of the rooms upstairs are.
Right.
It opens up, you know. This is how the whole house is built.
Oh, you can see the
Yes, and the
framework.
Roman numerals showing how it's all put together.
And a bit of activity.
Oh, that's a bit of our Death Watch beetle. Just imagine if that fell to bits and would the whole place come down like a pack of cards?
Doesn't bear thinking about.
I love that.
I love it too, and I love the sort of whole archaeological dig,
Yes.
you know, thing. I mean, it's fantastic. That is really amazing.
Clever, isn't it, though?
Very clever.
James has an intricate knowledge of his curiosities and has a story to tell about each and every item.
You seem to be keen on
I've
fans.
collected fans since I was a little boy, when I was given 4 of them.
Right.
And there's a lovely example just here.
I was going to say, how many hundreds have you got?
Several. And there's a beautiful one there, look at that.
What is this?
Ostrich feather.
Can it come out?
Yeah, absolutely, open it up. And handy if you do a fan dance. Actually, it was a court fan from Edward VII's court.
It really does kick up a breeze as well, doesn't
Actually,
it?
you probably needed it in some ball.
It's riveting, James, I have to say. It's riveting.
You're changing, you see.
Having explored the house and what's inside it, Ruth is keen to find out more about its curator.
James, we're in your kitchen, and this is where collecting sort of turns rather into a sort of steptoe world. Because I'm appalled. I'm absolutely appalled. I know I'm not here to inspect your domestic arrangements, but it is unbelievable.
I've never poisoned anybody yet.
Do you feel as if you're in control of the house, or is the house in control of you?
Oh, I haven't a clue. I can't even begin to answer that.
Have you got a business experience, financial experience? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I ran a very good business before I came here.
Right,
which I sold.
But in what sort of area?
Oh, I owned a museum and
So
shops.
not a million miles away
No,
from
not a million
this.
miles. I had an antique shop, 2 antique shops.
And were they successful?
Very successful, yeah.
And you don't have a natural heir of your own, so...
That's right.
So who is going to take it on?
Robin, who's my godson.
Does Robin have experience in this field at all?
Not really, no.
How much are you worried about the house and its future?
I'm very worried about it because the costs of running it are between 15 and 20,000 a year, I'd say. Now, if I stop doing all the repairs myself, it's going to cost a lot more. And at the moment, I can do them. You know, in 10 years, I'll be 71, and I won't be able to nip up ladders and repair things. And we'll have to hire somebody.
Yeah, sure.
You know, that's where the costs mount up, and that's when we'll lose it.
So we're looking at trying to find a system that will produce enough income, enough capital for the next 10 years for Robin to be able to inherit something that's actually a going concern, as it
That
were.
pays for itself. Simple, really.
You have to give James credit for actually restoring this house and preserving the fabric of the building, the roof. It's so important. But what there is this underlying feeling that it's actually chaos that he really isn't focused. And I think he kind of knows that. What needs to happen is he has to have a plan for how to produce an income for this house that's going to allow him to pass it on to Robin as a treasure, not a burden.
Opening his house to Ruth's scrutiny is proving a struggle for James Cartland.
She certainly needs to go to charm school, I think.
But he's amazed when he hears her suggestions for Cornfield's future.
I never could have believed in a million years that that's what she'd say.
Cornfield Hall in Derbyshire is a forgotten time capsule filled with remarkable secrets. The derelict house was saved from demolition in 1987 by antiques expert James Cartland, who restored the handsome property.
Oh, it's my whole life. Yes, I absolutely adore it. The more I've got into it, the more I love it. I know every inch of this house. I can tell you where every Deathwatch beetle lives.
The estate has Viking origins, but the manor that stands here today was built in the mid-1400s. The distinguished facade was added in the 18th century. Despite years of neglect, the house has retained many original features, including 2 grand oak staircases and an intricately carved fireplace in the Great Hall, both of which date back to the 1600s. The house has a checkered history. In 1627, rebel servants raided the dead squire's loot. The Reverend Francis Revel housed his wife, family, and even his mistress here in the 1700s. And the ghosts of an old maid and a murdered gentleman are said to haunt the property. But what makes this residence truly unique is the remarkable lifetime collection of curiosities gathered together by its owner, James Cartland. Now in his 60s, he's struggling to keep the estate afloat. Ruth Watson's been called in to devise a way of generating a healthy income at Cornfield Hall so that James can take more of a back seat in the future. She's concerned that James's heir, Robin Hanover, isn't left with a liability when his godfather dies.
Robin, when you inherit the house, I mean, do you have any plans for what you would do with the interior?
My wife and I are both collectors, so I'm sure we'd keep on collecting to a degree. Most of the major rooms, I think we're pretty well quite happy with as they are. I think it's the whole charm of the place. There are obviously some things that would be changed to suit us, perhaps, but to be asked, obviously, to become James's successor is an honour and a privilege. It's extremely flattering, and I hope that we do him proud when the time comes.
With Robin living 170 miles away in Surrey, Ruth wants to know if he's had any thoughts on how the 90-acre estate can reinvent itself.
Have you had ideas about how it could produce an income?
I know James is keen to kind of keep the park as the sort of the profit-making side and perhaps keep the house a bit more private. We're really open to use it to its maximum effect.
Talking with James, I felt a lack of focus.
A little bit, perhaps. I mean, there are obviously certain elements to the whole estate, if you can call it that. There's the park, the house, and I think that he's obviously now keen to kind of get motivated with regards to making it generate its own income to as great a degree as we can.
Ruth is beginning to realise that with its prime location close to major road networks, the answer to Cornfield's financial problems lies within the grounds and not the manor. James earns little income doing occasional house tours. To increase turnover, he started work on a new tea room. But Ruth's more concerned about the state of the facility that will service it.
Here's the pantry.
Right.
I know it looks an appalling mess, but we're just about to have a blitz on it and make it into a modern kitchen so that it can pass all the health and safety rules.
I mean, looking at it now, it's more like the garage than the pantry. I'm a bit horrified about the washing machine.
It's 30 years old.
You're not still using this washing machine?
Yes.
You're not?
Yes, 30 years old.
I'm sorry, if I put a load of washing in there, I would expect it to come out dirtier and rustier than when it went in.
No, it still washes clothes beautifully.
The thing is, environmental health will want to come and examine the premises.
Absolutely.
And they will want to make sure that every single surface is pristine and clean and cleanable. What is the time frame for this kitchen?
We're going to get it done this summer. It's the next thing to do.
Used to doing things his own way and in his own time, James is beginning to take umbrage with Ruth's direct approach.
Well, I think it's very interesting having Ruth here. I'm not sure I've learnt anything, and she certainly needs to go to charm school, I think.
Every nook and cranny is taken up by the Cornfield curiosities, and Ruth sets off on her own to explore. Up in the attic rooms, she's surprised by what she discovers.
Well, it's a magnificent doll's house, but, I mean, most of this is just mouldering books and fabrics. I mean, this is an addiction, this collecting business. Ha! This is obviously James's motto, not to be slung. It says it all.
Back downstairs, Ruth loses herself in the sheer magnitude of James's obsession.
Now, this is really sweet. It's like a little mini antique shop, and everything feels a lot more sort of placed in here. Perhaps it's just a bit more feminine. And look here. Sleeves, once worn by the Duchess of Kent, the mother of Queen Victoria. There's a real royalty thread through a lot of the possessions that James has. And what's interesting is, unless they're labelled, you just don't know. You don't get the connection. And I think this is something which really ought to be pulled out.
With this in mind, Ruth sets off to do her research. She's on her way to visit the former homes of two equally eclectic collectors. 25 miles south of Cornfield is Colk Abbey, a stunning Baroque mansion that's home to one family's huge collection of treasures. Ruth is given a tour by house manager John Parkinson.
This is a classic corridor at Cork Abbey. The National Trust took over in the mid-80s. We opened in 1989, and we very much present it as we found it. So hence all the faded wallpaper.
It goes on forever, this house, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness.
This is Sir Vaughansey Harper Crew's boyhood bedroom, actually. As you see it now, this was how we found it. It was photographed very carefully when the Trust took over.
Rather than renovate Cork, the National Trust changed nothing. The house and its contents have been painstakingly preserved and appear just as they were discovered when the Harper family left.
There's still huge cracks in the ceiling.
Yeah, the structure was made safe. Stainless steel pins were inserted above this ceiling just to hold it up. I think most of this wallpaper was removed carefully, and then the dry rot was sorted out, the plaster was replaced, and then the wallpaper was put back. But they preserved all the cracks and everything just so that you still get the feel of it being a sort of abandoned area of the house. And I'd like to think that as you walk down the corridors, you're discovering the place for the first time.
The enchanting spirit that's been maintained at Cork Abbey attracts over 140,000 visitors a year. But Ruth is keen to explore a more intimate space that has closer symmetry with Cornfield. Next stop for Ruth, Spitalfields, in the heart of London's East End. Like James Cartland, the late Dennis Sever was an avid collector. Number 18 Folgate Street is a fitting memorial to a legendary aficionado. David Milne is the current curator.
Can you just talk me through how it all began?
Dennis bought the house in the late 70s, and he created a story to give the house a substance. Mm-hmm. So all of the rooms are inhabited by the family that Dennis created.
There is a great deal of theatricality about this.
Every single item within the house has been strategically placed to create a rich tableau, as though Sever's fictional family are still living here.
This is the dining room of Isaac Gervais, who is the owner of the house. And in the portrait behind us, he's wearing a wig. On the chair is his wig. So instantly he inhabits that space. There's a letter addressed to him, and I believe he's just drunk from his glass and taken a bite from that peach.
And knocked his pipe out, perhaps?
Yeah.
Each room tells a story relating to different historical ages. It's a rich, sensory feast.
We're now headed into 1760, the master's most private quarters, his bedroom.
People came to see this house when Dennis was alive. This was his bedroom.
People visit the house and they see things, and sometimes they think that we forgot to put something away. His shoes are on the floor with the socks where he left them. You know, I'm here to take care of this house, take care of the collection and take it into the future, because one day I'm going to be gone. But actually this house and its collection and the memory of Dennis will live on.
Having done her research, Ruth returns to Cornfield Hall with her findings.
Hello, James.
Hello.
In the dining room, a nervous James awaits Ruth's appraisal.
First thing I would like to talk about is the inheritance issue, because obviously you want Robin, your godson, to inherit, and I'm quite sure that you don't want to land him with the most enormous tax burden. What I would like to see is a sort of 5 to 10 year plan of you getting Robin and his family more ensconced here so that you can do a natural handover before you pop your clogs, wouldn't it?
It would, yes, absolutely.
You're a really sweet person, and I think it would be horrible for you to end up staggering around this place like some lonely old bird, you know. It would be quite tragic. And I think it would be lovely if he could be here with his family so that you have got that feeling of support around you, you know, and family love.
Oh, I quite agree.
Ruth is convinced that the answer to Cornfield's future security lies not within the house, but in the 90 acres of unused parkland. She wants James to stage events on the land, managed not by himself, but by professional organisers.
Secondly, making income for the house. Now, I actually think this is a relatively easy thing to do. There's a company I can put you in touch with who actually organise a variety of sales, from just regular car boot sales and, of course, antique sales. Now, the virtue of that is, first of all, that you can have a nice mix of events going on. Just up the road, there's a place that's gaining somewhere between £2,000 and £6,000 every event, net. And if I tell you that you are allowed to do 14 of these throughout the year without needing any planning permission, this adds up to something in the region of, I think, a reasonably safe 50,000. But I think, given your interest in antiques, what I'd like to see is you having a stall for antiques as well. Not just to buy, but also to sell things.
I think that sounds incredibly sensible. It's exactly the direction we wanted to go.
Using the land to bring in revenue will ease the constant pressure of the house having to earn its keep. But Ruth still wants James to refine his exquisite collection.
What needs to happen is for you to get rid of some of the outright junk. Now, you know there is junk. Up in the attics, I would say 70% is just outright junk. And also perhaps devoting the attics to the dolls' houses, along with everything allied with the dolls' houses. You know, the prams, the teddy bears, all the kind of paraphernalia of childhood. I think that could be something that was curated. But I think the rest of it should pretty much stay exactly as it is. So what I'm saying is not to tidy up, not to dust, not to clean it all up, not to change it. That's the last thing I would suggest you should do. What I think needs to happen here is guided tours, but actually very focused, so that actually you pull out the things that you love. And it could be completely pertinent to your family history. It could be royalty. There's a real thread of royal connections. So it's not just one big blur. I would like to commend that you go down to London to look at Folgate Street and Dennis Sever's house. And what he did there was to evoke the whole history of the house, everything that actually really sort of takes people away from the 21st century. And if ever there was a house that takes people away from the 21st century, then it is this house, Cornfield Hall. And I think you should really, really maximise on that.
What makes the Cornfield collection truly charming is James's intricate knowledge of every item. Ruth is worried that when he dies, this wealth of information will be lost forever.
You could augment this by actually putting together an audio tape. That also means that it's preserved for all time as well, so that, you know, after your death, we don't have to worry about Robin not knowing about things because it will be there. And I think it would be a marvellous thing to do for our whole national heritage.
The problem is that we get so few visitors that it's never been worth it.
Right.
It's like having a guidebook.
Yeah.
We need to be able to get more visitors. How do we get them?
You're going to get more visitors because you're going to have this little website, right? And the website, we will make sure, is made known to all the tourist boards, all the heritage people. There's so many agencies that would love to have this on their books.
The key to Cornfield's long-term success is to focus on the future. But Ruth's worried that James doesn't have the ability to do so.
I don't doubt that there is intent, but I think what's needed is absolutely a push.
I think it's absolutely correct that I'm not terribly focused. There are too many things to do here, and it's just got too much for me. Simple. But no, and I have to say I'm actually quite surprised by what you've said, because we haven't exactly got on terribly well during some of this. I haven't agreed with some of the things I thought you were going to say, and it's been a great surprise, and I'm absolutely delighted. So there we are.
Good.
But is James truly on board with Ruth's suggestions?
I have to say that I've slightly changed my mind about Ruth. I'm rather impressed by what's happened, actually. I never could have believed in a million years that that's what she'd say. I'm still utterly bemused. Amazing.
After such warm praise from James, the atmosphere at Cornfield Hall turns decidedly frosty.
Hello, James. How are you?
No, I don't do that.
Oh, you don't do kisses?
And for Ruth, there's no imminent sign of a thaw.
It's not stupid because...
It is a stupid question,
No,
but
it isn't
just forget
stupid.
it.
Historic Cornfield Hall in the Midlands is in trouble. Advancing in years, James Cartland is struggling single-handedly to keep the house afloat. Ruth Watson's been called in to come up with money-making ventures that will allow James to take a step back.
I'm not really very business-minded. The trouble is that I see this place in a different light. It's my home. And I don't know, I just find the whole thing completely wearing.
With Cornfield's close proximity to the M1 and the A38, Ruth's keen to see the unused 90 acres of parkland utilised for profit. She's arranged for car boot organiser Mike Snow to visit and meet with James and his heir, godson Robin Hanover.
I mean, considering you're so near the motorway, it's really got a peaceful aura about it, hasn't it?
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing we were wondering is how we organise this and who would do what.
I would be responsible for doing all the advertising, the toilets, the staffing, the signs, everything really, getting the permissions.
Yep.
I've got public liability for as many sites as I want, so we've got all that in place. In essence, it is a risk-free way of potentially earning, you know, some good money out of it.
Car boot sales are hugely successful, and with such an expansive estate, Mike realises that James is sitting on a gold mine.
We would come to an agreement on how the turnover and the costs were sort of distributed between us.
And we could just work that out depending on, you know, how we felt at the time, I think.
Why don't we have some trial events this year, see how it goes, and then use that as a platform for doing something next year?
Just the sort of thing we want.
Sounds ideal, doesn't it?
Put it on radio as well.
Absolutely.
Cornfield Hall is back.
That's right, yes, that's it.
Like Ruth, Robin's keen to maintain Cornfield's quaintness.
Ooh.
But feels that James needs to be brought into the 21st century. Robin's following Ruth's advice by starting work on a new website.
Oh, bugger. Mobile connection not possible. Brilliant.
But all isn't going quite to plan.
Well, something's happened.
The connection has packed up.
And James has found himself something more pressing to occupy his mind.
We were going to look at the basic website.
Oh my God, the lean was falling to bits.
It's fairly simple. 5 pages, a page featuring the house, a page featuring the park, a page featuring the events, and then a contacts and links page.
I'm sure, Rob, this isn't how the British Museum would do it with a bit of sellotape.
That's true, yeah.
Ah, marvellous invention, sellotape. Stick the heirlooms together.
I don't think we're going to have much luck with this, though.
New carrier pigeons were more useful.
Yeah.
Robin has finally managed to get a signal, albeit outside.
I just click on enter.
Ruth wants James to collate and preserve his collection for posterity, and she's asked him to visit Dennis Sever's house in London.
I know all about this house, so...
Oh, I see. He's done it in a way that kind of makes it interactive, so that...
Oh, yes. Well, it's a family living in it.
Yeah.
As if they're there, and they've just nipped out of the room.
But James is far from keen on paying a visit.
What it's got to do with something like this and what we're trying to do here is nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I won't go to London. I don't like London, and I never go anywhere anyway.
James was initially enthusiastic about Ruth's ambitions for Cornfield Hall, but as the weeks have gone by, he's become increasingly disenchanted.
The original thing was that we didn't know how to make this place pay for itself, because I'm not the greatest businessman in the world. The trouble is, I'm trying to run what is actually quite a large estate. I don't have any staff apart from one person half a day a week trying to keep the lawns cut, the house sorted out, and it isn't an easy thing. And I don't think she understands that at all.
One suggestion that James has embraced, however, is utilising the sprawling estate for profit. It's late August, and local event organiser Mike Snow has been busy publicising a trial car boot fair.
Look forward to seeing you here. All right, bye. Up to 70 booters.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah. Not bad for a first stab, is it? Yeah, yeah.
I think we'll probably get some more here.
Yeah, I do, yeah. It's looking good. Right, okay.
The event has attracted over 200 eager bargain hunters and more than 70 stallholders.
Today shows that this site has actually got quite a lot to offer. This actually shows that there's something to go at.
Ruth wanted James to stage a clear-out and have his own stall, but he's got other ideas.
Oh, hello.
Here's my pound. I had to go and raid the piggy bank.
OK, thank you very much.
There you go. Terrific.
There you are.
There we are, and you get the money.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
There.
Thank you. Bye.
With so much land, Mike is convinced that Cornfield car boots could run every weekend, year-round, and accommodate many more stallholders.
I think for a trial it's very good. I mean, normally you would build up week on week, so perhaps within a couple of months you could be doing, say, 3 times what we've done today. I think the potential here is enormous.
The day's been a huge success, and Mike wants to give James his share of the takings.
In terms of the financial side of it...
I don't want anything for today.
Oh, no, you must. No, absolutely, yeah.
You keep what you make today.
No, I can't do
because
that.
I think that it's...
I was going to give you half of the
well,
turnover.
let's leave all that. I'm quite happy for you to, once we've tried one out,
Yeah.
And I think I said that originally.
Well, my aim was to give you half of the turnover of the day.
No, well, you know, you've had to advertise it and do all that.
Right.
No, I think that's only fair.
It's 4 months since Ruth's last visit to Cornfield, and she's back in Derbyshire to check on progress.
I haven't seen James for several months, but he seemed very agreeable to most of the suggestions I made. I can see there's a bit of new palisade up there guarding something or other, so hopefully that's a sign of other things that he's done.
But Ruth's about to get a rather lukewarm reception.
Hello,
a footstep. Hello.
James. How are you?
No, I don't do that. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you don't do kisses?
No.
Oh, God.
Don't
how are
fall
you?
over the mouse, which
I won't
the
fall
cat
over the
has-
mouse. Is that a present for me, a warning for me? What's that all
I think
about?
it could be both. It's from the cat, yes.
So how's life?
Oh, not too bad, yes.
You had the car boot sale, didn't you?
Yeah, that was quite fun. Got quite a lot of people, I think.
How much money did you make out of it?
Well, we didn't make any money out of it because that was never, ever the case.
Did you join in?
No.
No.
Too busy. So I went and had a look and bought something, of course.
You bought something?
I bought something.
So you didn't sell anything?
No, absolutely not.
No, why
And,
not? No stall out
no,
for you?
No stall.
But it would be nice if you had a stall as well. Don't you think it'd be fun?
Oh, I couldn't be bothered, really, but...
That all sounds pretty negative. All right, well, may I come in?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Where are we going?
Ruth might have got an indifferent greeting, but at least some progress has been made in the house.
Ah, the pantry.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
the pantry. Yes, it's
The
nearly
tea room.
finished. Yes, I've got all the plumbing's done, and, yeah, I've been painting it bits
And
at a time.
the washing machine's had a bit of a clean.
Yes, all of it's been cleaned up now. I was really thunderstruck by your comments, but you were right, of course.
Yeah, no, I think that's looking better.
It's a huge improvement.
With at least one room shaping up, Ruth's keen to find out what else has been going on at Cornfield.
One of the things, of course, that I wanted you to do was to do the audio tour.
Yes.
Any developments on that front?
No,
No.
haven't done anything about that at all.
Right.
But the tours are really not the problem.
What about the fact that only you are completely aware of what everything is, and the fact that your demise would mean that some of this became inexplicable to other people, whereas
Hold a séance.
Hold a séance. You reckon you'd come back and...
Definitely.
I think if you can't do it in real
you're
time,
right.
you're not likely to do it in spiritual time.
No, it was finding the time. But
So how are you spending your days then?
you must be joking. There's never a day here when there aren't things to do. You must be joking.
So tell me what you do.
Oh, good. I'm not going to go into that now. Good
Well,
Lord,
no,
what a
it's
stupid question.
interesting. It's not stupid because...
It is a stupid question.
No,
but
it isn't
just forget
stupid.
it. I'm not going to go into that. It's far too boring.
OK, so doll's house, not being upstairs, nursery in the top floor, child museum.
You can't get people up there
Why not?
because of fire regulations.
OK, so really nothing much has changed then?
No. Well, because it doesn't, you know, it really can't.
So impasse?
Impasse, absolutely.
OK, all right. I shall stop talking then.
James's unexpected resistance has unnerved Ruth.
I confess I'm a little perplexed about James's reaction because on my first visit he was so positive about some of my suggestions and he really seems to have done precious little. He seems very negative about so many things. I'm hoping that because he loves his collection so much, I can cajole him to showing me some of the precious best things that he really loves. Maybe that will warm him up.
If she's to win James around, Ruth's got her work cut out. Keen to see the unique stories of Cornfield's treasures preserved, she starts by getting James to talk her through a rather noble part of his collection.
The royal things. Now, you've got a number of pieces.
Well, yes, I've got things like a lock of Edward IV's hair, but there's not much left now since a burglar pinched the box.
Can we go see?
Yes, 1483, that is.
Gosh.
And, yes, there it is, Ruth.
Right.
Here's Queen Victoria's signature. When Queen Victoria became Queen, she had her first council meeting, and that's the blot from the first time she ever wrote her signature as Queen.
Am I looking mirror fashion?
Yes, that's right. And
Blimey.
And those are Princess Charlotte's wedding stockings. She was the daughter of George IV.
They're still tiny feet, aren't they?
Well, she was very young. She was about 18 or 19.
Right.
And she died in childbirth very quickly.
And this is George IV's pocket handkerchief.
Yeah.
How do people come by these things? Is it servants stealing?
I expect he dropped it somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's got a hole in the middle, so he must have had a cold.
Yeah.
But quite fun, this. I just like the historical context of it.
Yes.
I just think it's wonderful.
If it hasn't got a story, you're not quite so interested.
No, it makes it much more interesting if it's got a story.
So context is everything.
Yes. I mean, a wedding dress isn't much use unless you know who it
Who
was.
wore it,
Or, you know, some interesting artefact. I think it's far more fun.
But that is partly why I wanted you to do as much tape recording, whether it's for an audio tour, whether it's just tape recordings, because so much of this is in your head and your head
I know
alone.
it is. Oh, it is true. I mean, we've always thought of doing it. Yes.
To improve the estate's revenue, Ruth's ultimate aim is to outsource outdoor events so James can take a back seat. But having been at the helm for over 20 years, he's used to doing everything himself.
Do you think delegation is possibly part of the problem, that you're not a delegator?
Well, I can't see the point of a lot of it. Yes, I suppose that's true up to a point, but there's not... I can't see the point of getting other people to do things that I can do myself, and that's something I'd...
But it was a question of time, wasn't it, really, whether, you know, having the time to do all the things...
Yes,
that
but
are
that's not going to alter the fact.
Right.
That's not going to alter the time, is it? Because I'm going to have to be there.
Long-term change at Cornfield is going to be gradual. But eager to convince James that the parkland is the key to the estate's future, Ruth wants him to trial a second event.
What about if I were to suggest theatrical events? It's a company that does marvellous, sort of rather extravagant Shakespearean, slightly exaggerated things. Yes,
I think it'd be terrific. I mean, anything like that, I think they're wonderful, all those things.
This has to be one of the most maddening and frustrating meetings I've ever had, because at the end of my last meeting, James was so up for things and was really responsive to my suggestions, but actually everything that's pertaining to the house and the collection and his role within it, he is denying. He doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to do it. And the house is of massive importance. The only godsend is that I always thought it would be the events that would bring the money in, and I think the only way forward is to concentrate on that and put on another event.
But with the summer drawing to a close, the race is on to put on a successful show. And to persuade James that this is the way forward. James Cartland wants to see Cornfield Hall earn its keep so he can enjoy semi-retirement. Businesswoman Ruth Watson has come up with a solution that will bring in revenue and allow James to take a back seat. Cornfield is to stage its first theatrical event, but with the end of the summer fast approaching, there's only 9 days left to organise it. In the past, all the hard work fell to James, but today, Ruth's drafted in local events organiser Rachel Morley. Odd Socks Theatre Company tour the country performing boisterous adaptations of Shakespeare classics.
This is like a jack-in-a-box. Everything's... You know, it arrived in a lorry and it's all extraordinary.
Ruth returns for her final visit to see if James is, at last, managing to delegate.
Well, I have to admit, I didn't give them very much time to get this event sorted out, but looking at the red and white canopies, it's all looking very cheerful. Whether James will be quite so cheerful, I don't really know, because he certainly didn't seem to find my presence very welcome on my last visit. But, you know, who knows? Who knows? James, this is all rather glorious.
Hello, you've come just in time for rehearsals.
Hi.
It's really good.
Fantastic. Good fun, and also nice to see sort of animation around the place.
Lovely.
Yeah. Because it's all a bit of a spoof, isn't it, on Richard III, is that right?
That's right.
Yes,
Who
yeah.
I'm rather a fan of.
Are you?
I'm sure it's all made up the nasty things about him, it was a spin from Henry VII.
Yes.
Not the sort of chap to go about murdering his nephews, I think,
No, well...
in dark passages.
As the audience arrives, James is beginning to realise the true potential of Ruth's ideas.
This is going to be really good fun. This is going to be the beginning of a great future here.
A long weekend of performances like this could net James £9,000. All he has to do is provide the land.
Ladies and gentlemen, His Royal Highness, King Edward IV!
God save the King!
Now is the winter of our discontent. Made glorious summer by the son of your...
With the show in full swing, Ruth prizes James away to reflect on the last 5 months.
James, that was a really good evening, wasn't it?
I haven't enjoyed myself so much for a long time.
Fantastic.
Really good. I don't like Shakespeare, but that makes Shakespeare come alive. And watching the audience, they were all riveted. Everybody from 2 years old to 102.
Just doing some rough figures about the Odd Socks event tonight. If you were to do 3 of those a year with, say, about 500 people, which I think is perfectly possible with more notice, that would realise you about £9,000 net.
Yeah, I mean, they've all got to be, obviously, have a large piece of it as well.
No,
so.
that would realise you £9,000 net.
Really?
Yes, yes.
That's amazing, yes.
Which is very, very good.
Yes.
Yeah. You look as if, certainly for the outside events, that next year could be very lucrative and very successful.
Well, I hope so, yes. I mean, I know we've had our ups and downs in all this, but I wouldn't have done all this without you, and it has galvanised me into action.
Well, that's very generous of you to say so, thank you.
But, I mean, it's absolutely correct, that. Yeah, but
well,
anyway, thank you very much.
You know, the real problem here is not that it's falling down, it's that you're falling down gradually.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's right. Well, I can't do what I used to do 20 years ago.
Exactly. And, I mean, it's really to make sure that you and everything around you is secure for the next 20, 30 years.
Well, I think now we've got over the first hurdle, really. I've got great faith now that we'll be able to sort it out. If we can't, there's something seriously wrong with me. Probably is anyway.
Well, I wish you luck.
Thank you very much.